but they talk like they.
Okay, it is 6:10, so we'll go ahead and call our regular meeting to order this evening. We'll move on to 2.0, adoption of the agenda.
Yeah, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as printed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. 3.0, approval of minutes from our last regular meeting. Concerns about those?
Move to approve the meeting minutes from June 10th.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 4.0, consideration of bills and warrants.
And there aren't any bills and warrants in July due to rolling the budget.
Okay, so we'll move on to 5.0, hearing of requests and suggestions of citizens and organizations. And seeing no one in the crowd that's not already on the agenda, we will move to 6.0, a special presentation from a lady that would like to address the board about an archery program, but she is not with us yet, so we will replace her on the agenda with item 10.0, action to approve renewal proposals for our insurance from Mr. Bob Wood from the Wood Insurance Center. So bring him forth a little earlier.
Good evening.
Hello.
You guys have quite an agenda.
We do, yeah.
Get through.
Yeah,
I'll try to talk somewhat fast.
it requires a lot of caffeine to get through it, you know. Long agenda.
After a 4-day weekend, you know,
Yeah.
you're more tired coming home than you are when you're done.
All right, so Bob came and stopped and visited with us a week before last, and so in your view last week, on the 14th, that rate increase was included, and then this last week, also were included the 3 pages that talked about the difference between each building, the evaluation, those kinds of things. So he's here to answer any questions you might have.
I am, just as some more background on this, and we talked about it in years past too, but EMC continues to struggle with property insurance in Kansas. Schools in general across the state just continue to have claims of more severity and more costly as each year goes on, and it's just really piling up with inflation and building materials and that sort of thing. They're doing what they can to try to keep this program viable for school districts in Kansas. It is the only insured program in the state right now for schools. I work really closely with these guys on a day-to-day basis, and they truly are trying to do what they can to make this a good, viable option for districts. We are seeing increases again in the renewal on both building valuation and in rate. I think as we look at, I think you all have the page that kind of shows what the building valuations were last year and what they've increased them to. You can't really argue with any of those numbers. If you went to build a new school somewhere, it's going to take that amount of money to get it done. And so that's what EMC is trying to do, is get the insurance value to a level where they can replace a building if it blows down or burns down. They had, as an example, in this past year, I believe they have $32 million in premium in the program across the state. And they had 2 claims. One, there was an arson fire started by students in a building in western Kansas that cost $14 million. And then there was a large hailstorm in a 1A district in western Kansas that was over $5 million. So out of $32 million in total revenue into the program, they paid out $19 million on 2 claims. So it's a challenge for them, and I hate coming back and talking about this every year, but that's been what we're dealing with this year. I am just a messenger.
And there have been numerous districts that have been dropped. I mean, EMC has dropped a number of districts, is my understanding from.
There's a lot of confusion. Kind of early in the year, they came out with the stance that they were going to move everybody to a 1% wind hail deductible per building. So the deductible for a wind or hailstorm was going to be 1% of the amount of coverage on the building, on each and every building.
We didn't want that.
Yeah. And
That would have been really.
so the agent force kind of got up in arms and said, there's just no way the districts can handle that, because there's no way to budget for that. If you have it hit a $15 million or $20 million building, and just 1% on that building alone, but also all the ancillary buildings, like the one we're sitting in here, is ancillary to the high school. So we got, EMC agreed to go to a $10,000 wind-hail deductible per location unless you have a building that exceeds $7.5 million in value. And if you have one building on that location that exceeds $7.5 million, they go to a $75,000 wind and hail deductible. Another change was made to go to actual cash value replacement on any roof that's over 15 years old. So as we talked about this with staff, we talked about, as you're looking at capital improvements through the years to, as much as you can to keep roofs within that 15-year window, upgrade and update, replacement, whatever it might take, it's going to keep replacement cost coverage on those roofs should a storm come. When I say actual cash value, it's considered a depreciated replacement cost. So if there's a roof that should have had a lifespan of 30 years and you have a storm 15 years into that roof's age, if it's over that 15-year mark, they're, conceivably could pay half of the amount to repair or replace the roof. So, if we can keep them up to date, and you guys have done a good job of it. You've had some nice improvements. The middle school was just done, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. We did do update questionnaires on all the buildings in the district to determine what the age is now. But it's to your benefit, as you plan to keep those roofs in good shape. The rest of the package, there's a lot of other coverage items within our insurance program. They stay pretty consistent in pricing, and everything nudges up a little bit. But as far as the liability coverages, automobile coverage, workers' comp even went down a little bit, I believe. Your cyber coverage, we're seeing some relief in cyber insurance rates. They're going down as carriers get a little bit more familiar with the risk at hand, and the insureds implement controls that need to be implemented to keep a cyber incident from happening. So 3 years ago, we might have been coming around talking about multi-factor authentication and how do we get people to that level to where we can avoid a cyber incident. And anybody that's an entity as yours of this size has implemented those controls and has a much safer computer system. So I've had claims in our area, some pretty good ones on cyber incidents. So it is something we need to stay on top of and be aware of. Public entities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I hear you.
Don't really
No,
want to
I
be
hear you. I
names.
know. I've heard about those.
Yeah, the public entities in general seem to be a target. So I think, there's at times a lot of cash on hand, a lot of access points into your systems too.
But we appreciate Bob because we can always call, ask questions. He's always negotiating on our behalf to get the very best rates that he can get us. And so I feel like it's an increase, but it's...
I'm doing what I can. I tell you, when you don't have a lot of leverage, it's hard, to do it. But I think I got 10, 15,000 knocked out of it from the initial, from their initial swing. So we do have a good working relationship with them, and we're going to do everything we can for you.
Any other questions from Mr. Wood here?
I would
Okay.
recommend that you approve those renewals.
Yep, we will do that. Need a motion to do that?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve those renewals from Wood Insurance Center. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. We do appreciate the opportunity to work with the district.
And you can stick around for the rest of the agenda if
Yeah,
you'd like.
I'd like to.
We have a few other things to cover, so
Yeah, we'll get some more caffeine.
I got plenty for this meeting.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll backtrack a little bit, and we'll move to 7.0, report of the superintendent of schools.
All right. Okay, and I don't see our special guest, but if she comes in,
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
we'll work her in, so. All right, okay, so since the last time we've had a board meeting, there've been a lot of really great things that have happened and some really tragic things that have happened in the last month. So we did our TSA group that went, where did they go? Orlando, right? Is that where, they went to Orlando. We had 2 of those students, Antonio Aida and Connor Barkus, that placed second in the nation for technical debate, which was just phenomenal. And then our FCCLA group went out to Seattle, and Shay Clark and Cadence Ball had a top 10 finish in the nation there as well. So those were some really good highlights. We had the tragic death of a student a couple weeks ago, and so the services are this week. We continue to keep that family in our thoughts and prayers. A special thank you goes out to Matt Atterbury and his group at the Labette Center for Mental Health, and for our own guidance counseling staff. When we got that call on Tuesday, I was able to call Matt, and he got that set up, and called Diana, and she rallied all of our counselors, and they were able to provide some services, some grief and crisis support that next day, and have continued to do that. So we continue to keep them all in our thoughts and in our prayers. So moving on as we go, budget time. It is budget time. We have not rolled over the year, but that's what we're doing tomorrow on Tuesday, July the 9th. So because we need to make those transfers, and which you've already approved at the June meeting, we have a cash balance page that's due to KSDE by Friday. We don't carry over any title funds. That may be something you've heard about. We don't do that. We spend all of those. So anything that we have left, we transfer either to special ed or to capital outlay, because we know those are both areas where it's going to cost more money than what we've got coming in. So Laura has been working, our new business manager. She started on July 1, and Tanya is working with her 10 hours a week. They're doing 10-hour Tuesdays, and so that's been very beneficial just for the month of July. Tanya was willing to come and do that to help her get some things done. And she's also working with Susan Dodsworth at Greenbush. She's going to be helping with the budget and getting those things. We'll be working on that. So, and the revenue neutral rate, which was a new thing, what was that, the year before last? That'll be something that'll be coming out. We do plan to exceed that. The way the formula is built, I don't know how you could not, unless, so that'll be coming up. So we've got that. Enrollment update. Okay, enrollment opened today online, and so I know they were going to send out messages today to parents and families to say, hey, go ahead and enroll. They probably haven't done that yet. We talked about it this afternoon at like 2:30, and then we'll get something out on social media. So everything is online. Shouldn't take too long. You don't have to fill out the same forms over and over and over as in years past, which is beneficial. There isn't a free and reduced lunch application because we are going to continue to do that community eligibility provision, so everyone gets a free breakfast and a free lunch. But, and that, what we have to have is that home economic survey. It's critical that we get those, because our at-risk funding, it's usually based on your free and reduced lunch applications. And if you're not doing that, you have to turn something in, or you're not going to get at-risk funding. That's where those home economic surveys come in. So they'll be a part of that. So we ask people to be honest, not because I want to know your business. I don't. But be honest and get it filled out, because that does impact additional funding that we would get for at-risk. So there are a lot of districts that could do the community eligibility provision, but choose not to because they don't want to risk not getting that at-risk funding. So
is there any way we can help them on site here?
yes. And so the building secretaries and principals come back next Thursday. And so then the buildings will be open. They can always come up to the district office.
Okay.
But we will have an in-person day on August the 1st, all day. And so you can go to any of your buildings that day from 9 to 6. There'll be someone there. It's primarily for Lincoln families that got brand new littles that have never been in school, that need to come to school and look around and do some other screenings. But all the buildings will be open that day. And really, starting next Thursday, the buildings are all open. And so for sure, if someone says, I can't figure this out, one, I don't know my password, how to get in Infinite Campus, I can't remember, they can call. We can get them hooked up with that, or if they're not sure about how to fill something out, just, yeah, for sure. So we've got that. Let's see, summer school finished last week. My days are all kind of run together. June the 28th, so that was week before last. So that was when kindergarten through 8th grade finished. There were about 120 kids overall altogether. that did summer school K-8. They met in the mornings 4 days a week. For elementary, that was where they got to go on a Thursday field trip. And for middle school, as an incentive, and we actually had teachers that volunteered to go with them, on Fridays, they got to go on special trips if they had perfect attendance for the week, either weights and conditioning or school if they needed to attend there. So that was good. Last week, there was no summer school. So if your child said, I don't have summer school at the high school last week, they weren't fibbing. They really don't. But it started back up today. So there are morning and afternoon sessions for credit recovery that are at the high school. There's zero reason to not earn any credits that you're missing, because we've got people that are there all day, 4 days a week, that are willing to help. So if you haven't gotten someone signed up and you think they need to sign up, call the district office between now and next Thursday. We can get them hooked up. So, next, facilities update. Dun, dun, dun. We had a big meeting last week, didn't we? Was it? Yeah, it was last week. Beginning, and looked through a variety of things that need to be done. And those things were included in your view last week, just as a general update. And that is what looked like this, where I just put the different schools, and we put, this is a short-term, and this is immediate, short-term, long-term, things on a rotation, those kinds of things. So we updated that last week, and then there's some action items for specific large things that need to be replaced or repaired for safety purposes that are also in your agenda. So we ended before transfers, before balance transfers, we've got about $650,000 in capital outlay. I would say by the time we're finished with transfers and then additional tax money, we should be a little over $1 million. So there is adequate money to get the work done, and in years past, we haven't always spent, that money, but we want to be fiscally responsible and spend it. But we also want to make sure we've got enough money for insurance, deductibles, and things like that. So we've got some of those things coming up. Something else we've talked about is sports facilities and looking at what's that going to look like in the future. And so we are going to have, there's Mammoth, there's a couple other places. When we go to those administrator workshops, there's always someone there that says, here, let me show you how I can build you this magnificent whatever. But they also have a lot of people on staff that really do know how they can improve an existing structure, not just a grandiose, like we're going to roll it all out. And so we are going to be in contact with them, just have them come and look around just to see what could we do, where we're at, as we continue to visit with the city about those possibilities. It's good to get an expert if we don't know. They know. So that's happening. What
So
else?
has Debbie ever gotten back to you in regard to the tennis courts?
She has, in that they're going to repair those two. And so I got an email today from tennis coach that said they're not done yet. I knew they were behind because of the weather. As far as leasing, is that what you're referring to?
The MOU.
That is not yet.
Gotta get them repaired.
We're gonna get them, I agree. And so then we need to look to see, and then the softball field, baseball fields, Mo Keel stopped by the other day and said, these lights. And so we sat down and looked at that and how much that's gonna cost. And so, yeah, we need to do some planning.
And the soccer field needs some work on it too.
It does. We've had a drainage issue basically from the beginning. And I think when it was initially graded, we found out there was some GPS something that was supposed to go in something when they graded it. And the people came to grade it and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna wing it. What? I got that email from Gary Chrisman this week because I'd sent an email to him and said, hey, we're holding water here, what can you help us with? And he said that had happened, that the in-kind donation, that person's no longer in business, they had subbed it out, and then the sub did not have the GPS coordinates or grids and said, we're gonna wing it. And he and James had, it looked pretty good. However, it's not. So Eric, I don't know if he's here. Is he hiding back there?
He's there.
He's hiding back there. So he reached out to the subcontractor today and was waiting to hear back to see about having them come and look again. We don't want to put a whole bunch of new sod down if it's just going to be holding water. There's no point in doing that. But there are a couple spots, look pretty rough.
Well, it's a safety issue for the young
Yeah,
kids.
at this point. And then in the entryway there at the soccer field, I mean, that just needs to be cleaned up. He's talked to a nursery, a group about maybe some things they can do, but first we got to get the field level, so.
Typically, you add soil and you add sod, so.
Right.
Unless it needs a whole revamp of the whole thing, which that's not my understanding, there's just spots. So surely, we ought to be able to get to the bottom of that.
I hope so.
Well,
Yeah.
I would think so. Do you want to address that, Eric?
Yeah.
We've added four dump trucks full of dirt.
Okay.
That's how low it's been.
Okay?
And we're trying to build it up gradually.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got fence in place now. We've kind of put
The cart before the
the
horse?
cart before the horse.
Okay?
I mean, we were not ready to put that fence up yet,
Yeah.
from what I can see. And we've got low spots, and every time it rains, it's raining right now, it holds water and it just kills out the existing grass.
And so,
So we have brought dirt.
okay, so are you suggesting more dirt in the targeted areas is not going to be sufficient, or what are your thoughts on all that?
Right now, I'm trying to reach out to experts. I mean,
Okay.
I hate to go out and say, well, let's do this, and then
Okay.
we're wasting time and money and energy on something that's
Okay.
not going to work. I'd like to have a little bit of expertise behind me, so I'm not
Okay.
wasting anybody's time.
Well, the original contractor that subbed it out still lives here, even though Gary Chrisman says he doesn't. He does live here, and he's willing to come out, because I spoke with him directly, and look at it and see what needs to be done,
Oh.
and talk about it. Yeah, Pat LaForge will come out, and take a look at it and help develop a plan. It's not a problem.
That would be great.
I'd
Okay,
like that.
well,
That would be greatly
I
appreciated.
will,
We reached out to,
yeah, I'll get you in contact with him, and
perfect.
he'll come out and take a look at it, so.
Very
I
good.
appreciate it.
I think maybe there's been some miscommunication on Mr. Chrisman's part, so that's
Well, and that'll
fine.
get us headed to the right path, because
You mentioned the lights. Lights where?
lights at the baseball field,
Which baseball fields? Winway?
no, at the high school, well, at the college
At-
field that we use.
The men's field.
Well,
Men's or the
probably women.
softball or the
And the
men's?
softball field, the softball lights. What about them?
That's my question. Where?
I think, well, the ones at Winway, but the ones specifically that when Mr. Keel came and was visiting, he was talking about the high school baseball field, and then, which is what the college uses, just right there at Marvel, and then softball lights.
Softball as well.
They need to be changed out, upgraded.
Right.
Okay.
They're very old.
Okay.
And he doesn't know
All
how much longer they're going to last, and they're
Okay.
very expensive.
right. Okay, all
So
right.
those are things to keep on the radar,
Okay,
so.
all right.
All right, upcoming dates, the 18th, next week, high school, middle school principals come back, secretaries get here. 25th, elementary principals return, so they have an additional week. August the 1st is that in-person enrollment date, so you can bring your people to school and enroll if you need any assistance. We will have kiosks set up in each of the buildings, just as we always do, so that you can enroll just online in any of the buildings if you need that as well. August the 8th is new teacher orientation, and so Jeff will get all of that organized and lead that day at the high school. And then it's already time for staff professional development. We're back in school the 19th, 20th, and 21st for all staff. And then the 22nd is the first day of school for all students. And this year, we're going to do it a little bit different. When all, we're going to say all, everybody. Pre-K through 12, you come that day, you stay all day. Happy first day of school, you know. In the past, we've done you half a day. If you're new here, you come in this day, and then, I don't know why we didn't a long time ago, just say it's the first day of school, we're happy to have you, we're gonna keep you all day. So your kindergartners will be tired that day, but that's okay. It'll be fun. Everyone will be excited, so that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Do we know approximately how many new teachers we have this year?
So we have not very many. We have two at the high school, and one of those was a permanent sub last year. Well, one was a full-time sub for us, so is very familiar with the building. The other was a permanent sub in that position. So we have those two. At Guthridge, we have one who is going to be the art teacher, or who had been the art teacher last year, is transferred, so she's still not really new. And then we have one new second grade teacher who actually did her student teaching in second grade with Penny Jacquino, and that's going to be her classroom. So we have those.
Music teacher.
And then when we have a new music teacher, Blake. And who else?
Council.
And a new counselor, Lauren O'Bannon.
Okay.
So, not really very many. The turnover was very
That's good.
minimal. It is. It was exciting. And we kept looking at the list and rechecking the list like, yeah.
New counselor where?
At Lincoln, Mr. Woodworth moved to Emporia.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So, Lauren O'Banion, she's one of our graduates and is back. She had been in Chanute as one of their middle school council, middle school, elementary, so.
Okay, moving on to 8.0, report on the Tri-County Board meeting. Ms. Whiter-Green.
Okay, so this was a big meeting. Thanks, Sam. And
I have no more plans in the next 6 months, so.
So the state, is what she says. So the state kind of did money a little bit differently this year, and the board for Tri-County had to decide how much, like, the contributions from the district was going to be, just because of the way that the money filed in. A 13% increase to district contributions was voted on and it passed. Tri-County has a lot of openings currently that they're trying to hire for, between paras and everything, and they're working on some retention efforts. And they also have a new program that offers tuition assistance for those wanting to get a degree, and they've had some success with that. But overall, it was discussion for what the budget was going to look like next year, and like what they were going to do to hire and retain.
But that was a challenging discussion.
But thanks, Leanne. It definitely is. And they have their negotiations coming up too for their teachers and their paras with pay and things of that nature. So that's coming up for them as well.
Any questions? All right, thank you. 9.0, discussion and action to develop a task force to design Douglas School Monument. Mr. Martino, what are your thoughts on this aspect? You're the one who brought this to the board's attention. So.
Well, I had a conversation with Skip Smith last week, and I ran into Bruce Ray yesterday because I'm not a designer, I just have ideas, and Skip's the artist, Bruce is the designer. I would suggest that the administration choose some people to get the ball rolling on this, and have some kind of designs that we can look at and choose, and then find out what it would cost and how long it would take to erect and put it up.
Okay, so the task force would make a recommendation to the board on like some designs,
Right.
maybe with cost range and so
Right.
forth, depending on what was designed. And so I would envision that some people may be able to participate in this, but may not be on the actual task force, but may
Right.
serve maybe another role. Yeah, yeah. So is that your understanding as well?
That is my understanding,
Okay.
yes.
How many did you think would be an appropriate number for the task force in your?
Relatively small, 5, 6 maybe.
Okay. So maybe action item to direct Ms. Ray to kind of spearhead an effort to get a task force together for this purpose. 5 people. That's what I think. And Mr. Martino would certainly want to be a board rep on that task force, I would think. Yeah. So, the motion would be to put together a task force with Mr. Martino being our board representative, I would think. We could have more than one board representative if
Oh, yeah.
someone else wanted to serve on that.
Sure.
I'd like to
Olivia.
serve.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'd like for, we want to find 5 people my age, old, and good luck. They don't exist.
Your age and good looking?
And older, that would have gone to Douglas. I think it's important. Don't just pick people that have no attachment.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
know that-
if you know some people
I
for
do.
sure, then
I
that
do.
would be
Yeah.
the
But I
way,
think,
where to get some information would be
Right.
from you, yeah.
I think a
I don't
volunteer is
think-
going to be
and I don't
helpful.
think sending out a letter to them. I think we
No,
need to
I'll just
contact
call
them,
them.
tell them
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah,
Might have to get some Zoom calls in,
Yeah.
to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Because everybody doesn't still live in Parsons, believe it or not.
that could, okay.
That could
That would be
participate.
helpful.
So the thought is, I didn't envision she was going to be selecting people, but maybe
No.
seeking nominations
Right.
or recommendations for it. So you and Mr. Martino could be involved in that
Got
process.
some names and some
Yeah.
votes.
Right.
Okay,
I
that
know who
works.
went to Douglas and who didn't.
All right,
Yeah, and who would want to participate and who wouldn't.
okay, all right. And then some of those other folks may not be on the task force, would be serving in really significant support roles.
I think Skip, he'll be great, and Mr. Ray would, I hadn't even thought about him, but he'll be great too.
Well, he
Yeah, you
helped
get-
design
Yeah, you
the,
got to get somebody to get it from Skip's vision to the,
exactly.
Right,
to the automated aspect.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Mr.
I
Ray
asked
will be
Bruce
great.
at ACES yesterday, and he said he'd be glad to help out.
Okay. All right, so motion to develop a task force with two board members as discussed, being members, representatives.
moved.
And second. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your commitment to this, both of you. So we've already done the insurance, now we'll move on to 10.1, action to approve recommended June CASB policy updates.
All right, and just so that you're aware, on Tuesday, July the 2nd, a preliminary injunction was granted by a federal judge in Kansas that would prevent those final Title IX rules that were issued in April from going into effect on August the 1st. And so as a result of that, the following up, those policy updates that CASB issued in June should be adopted with the exception of policy GAAC, GARIA, JGEC, and then new policy JGECAA. So I know, just what you wanted, few little letters there. And look, I read that without my readers on. Hi, Dr.
Interesting.
Needs catalyst.
Yeah. So, I didn't have any questions over any of the other policies. No one had reached out. So, the recommendation would be that you adopt the recommended June policy updates, except for those
Yep.
policy updated
Yep, yep,
that were listed.
yep. Okay.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and second to approve those policy updates with the noted exceptions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 10.2, action on the 24-25 student parent handbooks, bus driver handbook, parent-student transportation handbook.
So all of those were handed out at the June meeting and on the agenda. I haven't had any questions. The updates were noticed, so I would recommend that you approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve all those handbooks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 10.3, first reading of the 24-25 classified staff handbook that we received.
Right, and so that'll be on the agenda for approval next month. This month, it's just reviewed. Last year we had it sent to or maybe 2 years ago. It went to KASB for a full-on legal review, and any revisions or updates they've provided to us, so. But that'll be on for next month.
Okay, thank you. So we have not received an updated memorandum of understanding for our school resource officer, so we will table 10.4 until another meeting. So that means we'll move to 10.5, discussion and action on staff social media guidelines.
All right, and so these are the same guidelines that were adopted last year. They were just, we revised it with the dates. So just as a reminder, these aren't policies per se. These are recommendations and guidelines, but it is something that helps provide some structure and guidance for administration, for staff in their social media communication. It goes back to our communications plan and guidelines, which was part of our strategic plan initially, talking about using Class Dojo, using Remind, all of those things in there. And it does, as recommended by KASB, there is a sheet at the end where a staff member, once they've gone over the highlights, and then once they've been given a copy and had an opportunity to read it, they sign it and acknowledge that they have received it. So,
The only thing about the social media communications guideline, I would ask that it be printed larger. It's the smallest print I've ever seen.
okay,
And people usually don't read things that are small.
okay. And I don't know what size font that is, but we can
It's about a
increase the
9.
font.
I was going to say 9.
Probably, sorry.
Go
Well, we can
12.
increase the font size, that is not a problem.
I wish this could just be guidelines for everyone.
Yes, wouldn't it be
I really
nice?
do.
Yeah.
When as I was reading it, I thought, this is just smart for everybody.
Just the general.
I have
General
some
focus.
questions and concerns on the very last page.
Okay,
Kind of scary the more I read this.
okay.
First paragraph, employees are never under any obligation to accept friend or follower requests from any student. And the next paragraph goes on, exercise great care and connection with students on any social media. In the last sentence, they should accept all requests. If you accept one request from one student, then you have to accept requests from any student, not to be discriminatory. That's a little spooky. And it doesn't say what the consequences are if someone violates this. So on July 1st, the state of Oklahoma, even though they want you to teach the Bible in school, have something really good that I thought. They said school personnel engaging in electronic or digital communication with an individual student shall include the student's parent or guardian in any electronic or digital communication unless such communication is on a school-approved platform and related to school and academic communications, which would save a lot of headaches. It's just some food for thought that maybe somehow that could be adopted. Because if you start communicating on Facebook or Snapchat as any school employee, you're opening the gates for trouble. Now, you start putting the parents on there, they'll see what they'll get the same message that their son or daughter would get.
And that's why we really encourage, and that's what KSB encouraged us to encourage people, to make sure that we use Classroom Dojo or that Remind. Now, some of the rules with Dojo have changed. So in the past, we used to be able to get any conversation from Dojo anytime we wanted. And now Dojo's saying we have to have an attorney request that, so, but I think it does provide, like Remind, in fact, we had an issue just this summer where a teacher said, well, this is what I said, and I sent it out on this day, and the parent's like, well, I didn't know anything about that. But we can go back and look, and on the Remind app, it was sent out on this day, and so, and it does show a red receipt, so, but yeah.
Well, these are guidelines, and so
Right.
there's not going to be any punishment
Yeah.
for ignoring them, because they're guidelines, not requirements.
Right.
Well, we've had issues with,
Certainly. I think that policy that you read, I believe it's probably going to end up in litigation, because I don't believe that I, as a board member, have a right to tell someone that they can't befriend someone without befriending their parent.
well,
If
then we, but on the other hand, if you friend one student, you have to friend them all.
They're
kind of the same
They're
thing.
encouraged to do that. That's the guidelines. And guidelines don't mean that we're going to punish someone. What I heard you say is like a requirement and not a guideline, but perhaps what you said is not a requirement, it's just a guideline. I don't know.
Well, we
Is
can
it a
make
requirement?
we can make this as a suggestion,
Oh, just add it to the list of guidelines?
yes. That would alleviate some of the loss. Well, I hear what you're saying, but if we suggest it and not demand it, that would take away some of the litigation.
So the suggestion is if you're befriending, so what do you do with the people, what do you do going backwards? Let's say I've got a staff member working in a building that's got 52 students, current students as friends on a social media
At this
platform.
point in time?
At this point in time.
I don't know.
I mean, do we?
I don't know yet.
Do we make them go back and say, okay, I've got to add 52 sets of parents here, or?
What about parents that don't have Facebook?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and
Or parents that
which,
don't have those.
And
Where
go to
did
the
we get
social
this?
media?
Does KSB write this?
So, no, what they did was Ben and Matthew went to their group and got a lot of this information, and then we sent it, they wrote it, and then they sent it to KASB, and they had some suggestions.
I think whatever we do, we
and
need
then-
lawyer input, because there is a ton of lawsuits
Right,
going on.
well, and that's
That's what
why,
I'm saying.
that's
Yeah,
why it's
I
just
know, but I'm just saying,
guidelines.
whatever
It's
we
just
do, or whatever the board decides, we need to
suggestion.
make sure that we are
Yeah, and
running
that's,
it through KSB and
and that's why they're just called guidelines. And we expect our teachers and staff to behave in a professional way, and these are ways in which they can do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I agree with Lou. I think that's a good idea, and it's like, well, okay, I've got 50 friends. Well, yeah, maybe starting a point, yeah, and invite a parent. That way there's some transparency there. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Does a teacher need to go and vet their list of who they're friends with and try to reach out to a parent? Yeah, it's a guideline. Why not? I mean, if they want to do that, great.
We've really just discouraged them
I just
from,
don't think they should be
from
friends with.
doing
Well, no, they
anything with
shouldn't,
them
but
on
that's already
social
on
media.
there. But
So, and if they need to communicate with a student, they need to do that through their school email, or through Remind, or through Class Dojo. And all of those a parent has access to, and is all connected. So this would be just if they were, something on social media, which we discourage anyway.
Right.
But,
My personal view is I don't care what they're doing if they're acting with common sense.
All right.
I don't care how many students they have as friends or how many they don't. If they're doing something inappropriate, then I want to hold them accountable. And so I don't view this as, I don't know. I don't really care about how many, I care about the nature of that correspondence and communication. But
the professionalism,
I don't have all the answers. I don't know.
I don't either.
I think with this, there's always going to be a gray area. There's always going to be, well, I did this because, or this doesn't work because, and every relationship is different, versus like with students too, especially if you're friends with the students' parents, or they go to church together, or there's always going to be muddy waters.
And I think that's why KSB hasn't issued a hard and fast policy, because there's so much gray.
Well, we are a 7-member board. What do we want to do? We've got this guideline, we've got Mr. Martino's findings in Oklahoma that he's suggesting we add. What do we do tonight?
will you read that again, please?
I need to see it.
School personnel engaging in, personnel, anybody, engaging in electronic or digital communication with an individual student shall include the student's parent or guardian in any electronic or digital communication unless it's school-approved communication. So,
Instead of shall, could you say is encouraged to?
We already do that, though.
We already do that by using the Remind, the email, and the Dojo. The part where we wouldn't do that, or haven't made that already part of just the procedure for how we do it, would be on the social media things. And I don't know that we want to get into any, I think we want to make recommendations for people, but I don't know about, and how that would I don't know how we would hold anyone accountable or monitor that.
well, we're not anyway,
Checking.
because these are guidelines.
Well, but we are able to on the Remind app, the
Well,
Dojo
yeah,
app, or
but
email.
that's totally separate deal
So-
than what Lou is
Right.
referring to, and what is saying if you're on a social media platform. And
Right, and so did,
it's just essentially
You read
saying
that
if they're
again?
The
good.
word "shall" is not a guideline. The word "shall" is a requirement.
You
Because
change
that's
that to
not-
should as
that's
opposed
not
to
the
shall.
Or recommended.
Or
something like
encouraged.
that. Yeah, or encouraged. Because
Say
our,
it again.
the section that Ms. Ray was talking about is in bold on the last page. Staff that need to communicate with students and their parents are expected to communicate through the following. And so that's where we put some teeth in so that we don't have staff text messaging kids all hours of the day and night, potentially inappropriately.
And that's where our issues have historically lied.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem changing the word shall.
Okay.
so tell me what that says again.
Well, I think it's going to have to be, it's going to apply to several sections, I think. And so I think we better table this and we better change it where appropriate, unless we can. I mean, because I think it's going to be in several paragraphs.
Okay, so can you read me that language so that I can write that, so that I can start work?
Can I do what?
Would you read that language to me again, please?
Or just pass
Or,
her the
yeah, if you
sheet.
have a
Yeah,
copy of
let's
it,
just-
can I just have it?
Yeah.
That'd be great. So is that, are you gonna,
And there's probably something out there even better than this. I mean,
well, we haven't found it.
Yeah, so this is the state law of Oklahoma,
Right.
so it's a new act. Yeah.
That came out.
Yeah, and so I don't know if it was passed or not.
that's right what the Bible says.
Okay, yeah, there's some more exceptions, and so why don't you read
Right.
that? Why don't we, can we table this and,
Just make
We
it better.
can, the next, it will just need to take action at the next board meeting so that it's ready for staff.
yeah,
Because we need to be able to tell them at the beginning, this is what we expect you to
yeah,
do.
I think we need to table it and modify it where necessary.
All right, I appreciate
If
Because there was some-
necessary.
There was some exceptions there that, and that's written as a state law and not as a guideline,
Right,
and so a state law is a little bit different to enforce
Very different.
than a guideline at
Sure.
a school district, so. Okay, so we'll table the staff social media guidelines till they're revamped. Okay, 10.6, discussion and action on 24-25 accountability report.
Okay, so that is included in your packet. Okay, let me get this stuff.
Go ahead, sorry.
All right, nope, just trying to do too many things at one time. Okay, so your accountability plan, it's what looks like this, that's included. And what that does is that just gives us a preview and holds us accountable as administration and the board to report monthly on things that are directly related to the strategic plan and the teaching and the learning. And so that's what we have for those following months. And if there are other things that you think, oh, what about this? We need to add that.
So just kind of gives you a preview of each month, the special topics we'll be
Right.
discussing.
And they're all related directly back to the strategic plan.
Yeah.
One, so we don't write the strategic plan, hang it on the wall, and never do anything with it again, so that we're holding ourselves accountable for doing the things that are in the plan. And also it helps us keep focused, so we don't say, oh, well, this year we want to do this, and, you know, as a group, there's 4 or 5 different tangents going on instead of what the plan was to begin with. So that's where we're at. Different people, directors will present at those, admin will come once a quarter, they'll provide you with the written report each month, in addition to when they need to attend. So I would recommend that you approve that.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve that accountability report as printed on page 9 there. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. 10.7, action to approve vended contract to St. Patrick's to provide meals.
All right, so that is, it's 26 pages right there in your board
Pretty
packet.
lengthy, yeah.
So it will provide lunch, we're not, they didn't request breakfast. So lunches would go out 5 days a week. It would be the days that we are in school and they are in school. We've shared a calendar. Mrs. Carson, their principal, has agreed. The cost to their meals would be, where's it at in here? I highlighted it. $3. Well, it's in here. Keep looking.
Yeah, it's 30-something.
$3.50 for the lunch per student,
Yep.
and an adult à la carte meal would be $4.40 per lunch. So that has been successful. We've been able to help them, and that's been beneficial to us as well. So I would recommend that you approve that vended contract to St. Pat's so we
No,
can
they don't do
continue.
summer school, do they?
Pardon me?
Do they do summer school?
I don't know if St. Pat's did summer school or not.
Good.
We didn't do any of the
Well, she
meals.
said yes.
Oh, okay. But we don't do meal.
Huh?
No meals for summer school.
Yeah, our district didn't do any meals for summer. All
Okay.
the summer free meals were from the hospital.
Okay,
And
because
so-
it had
this-
it listed in there.
Right, that they would be eligible for the summer meals when the
Okay.
hospital doesn't. Yes, you're
Okay,
right.
that's good.
Uh-huh.
Okay, need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve that contract to St. Patrick's to provide meals. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. 10.8, action on participation with Green Butch parents as teachers for the school year.
All right, Parents as Teachers is that program for kiddos birth to 3. We have a home visitor, Chelsea Goody, who goes out and visits up to 20 families in a month that she sees. and gets them connected with the school. We've had some times, really the success of the program just depends on the person. That's the reality of the way that's always been. And so Chelsea's made a point of working very closely with the preschool teachers, so she's come in once a month for collaboration with them. And this next year, they're going to do some they're planning to do some joint activities to address that family engagement from the littles at Lincoln. So I would recommend that you.
Chelsea does a good job. I
She
see her at the Levet Coalition meetings.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve participation in the Greenbush Parents as Teachers program for the following school year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. 10.9, action to approve a corporate resolution related to our bank cards.
All right, this is related to, it's a new requirement that the group has through Labette Bank. So it's the same people that are going to sign it. It'll be Laura Allison now instead of Tanya, but they do, now the bank requires a resolution to do that, so that we can transfer funds, transactions, do administrative things, and pay the bills. So I recommend that you approve that.
As far as general oversight, I mean, administrators look over the statements and initial and sign off.
So
How's
what they'll-
that process work?
So anytime anyone uses the card, they have to turn in the receipt back to the building secretary, and they write on the receipt what it was for. Title supplies, instructional supplies. So then the secretary gets that. She will type up a requisition that goes with all of those. So like, here's the Labette bill or the Walmart bill for the month. Here are all of the charges that are on it and what they're for. And then she will assign the account numbers. So we know it's title, so it's 6540, or, those kinds of things. Then that goes to the principal. Principal looks at it and signs it.
Okay.
Then it comes to our office, and so then I look at it, and I have this list of all of these short accounts, so I can look to see, okay, they're spending all of their title money, or they don't. So I look, make sure it's coded properly, and then I sign it. And then it goes to the business manager, because there's some of them I'm not sure about. I have a question, think, well, maybe this could be at-risk funds, maybe this could be title funds. And so then the business manager and I look to see, what it should be, look at what policy is, then she signs it, then it goes to Miranda and gets paid. And there's a step in there when it comes over, Emily Salyers logs all of those too. I mean, she puts them all in a book, so there are a number of eyes
Okay.
that look at each one. So,
Okay, need a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve that corporate resolution as discussed and printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. 10.10, action on the strategic plan 2429.
okay, 24, oh yeah, it is, it's a 5-year deal.
Yes, it is.
And it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah.
It will be. Okay, so the strategic plan and the infographic were included in the View in June. Sent something out again last week with the updated, not the actual infographic, because they're getting it cleaned up so that we can have a one-pager that looks like this, front and back, that we can hand out, and then something that we can hang up. But also, and while that's pretty and that's important, what really matters is the meat, what's in it. Is this really what we're going to do, and how are we going to, hold ourselves accountable, which refers back to that accountability plan, and measure that. So I haven't heard any other suggestions or any of that since June, so I would recommend that you approve that unless anybody's got questions or things that we haven't had a chance to talk about.
Make a move to approve the strategic plan, barring any other pandemic.
I know, we don't. Yeah, don't say.
You
Well,
put
we-
in there, didn't you? I had to say it aloud.
Well, we got that one started last time. and
This
then-
one didn't quite work out well for us.
Well, we just had to move a whole bunch of, we got a lot of things on that strategic plan done in a very short amount of time.
I just used a code word. We just had to pivot.
We did, that was the famous word at KSDE.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve that strategic plan for 2429. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, now we're moving on to some somewhat unexpected expenditures, series of 4 of them here. So 10.11, action to approve a bid from Hinman Tree Trimming.
So both of those, and Eric is here and he can attest to he can visit about that. The drought was just horrible on trees. It was bad. between that and the wind that we've had a lot of trees. The big tree at the middle school in the backfield, looks like a big, beautiful tree.
Dead.
It's totally dead. There's a big, I mean, you can stick a stick right almost through it. There's big holes. So we had 2 different groups come and do some estimates. Those were included in your view last week so that you had both of those estimates. The Hinman bid was for 3 large trees and 3 stumps, 9 regular stumps, because our guys did a lot of tree work themselves. They took down a lot of stuff. They've been busy. And then the overgrowth and the limbs, the back of the middle school. So I don't know, do you want to talk about the trees or anything like that?
Anybody have any questions about the trees?
Well, weren't some of those memorial trees?
Some of those were memorial trees, and so they have been replaced.
Where do we get those to replace?
He can tell you about that.
We replaced one of them already. We picked it up at Independence Nursery, the
Okay.
nursery over there. And the plan is to go ahead and replace the other 3 once the old stumps are ground out.
Yeah. So we got to get,
Independence?
Yeah, we're just gonna replace the memorial trees.
and this time, and what is it that you're doing around them that holds the water?
It's basically a big bag that, it's a slow release water. The nursery kind of went through stuff with us and said that watering a tree is, I mean, relying on the rain, it just scatters.
Yeah, it's
You need to
self-watering.
water. Yes. You need something that's gonna be a slow release.
So
So,
so those will be replaced. One of them's already been replaced,
one of them was replaced right off the bat.
but some of them, we've got to get those stumps ground out before we can put the new ones back.
It was bad enough that the roots and everything just came with the tree. We just pushed it over by hand.
The whole thing popped out. Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion on the Hinman tree trimming bid then.
I'll move to adopt that.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve the Hinman tree trimming. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, 10.12, action to approve Square D by Schneider Electric to replace a main electrical switch.
Okay, we've got a main electrical switch at the middle school in the basement, and I've included pictures in a picture. I don't know, sometimes a picture just speaks 1,000 words. Like,
So,
there's the handle.
so just for clarification, so Square D is a brand.
Yes.
And so Schneider Electric is installing a Square D switch? Is that what's happening? or-
From my understanding, Schneider and Square D are together.
Okay,
We had CDL come out and take a look as well.
Okay.
Triple T.
okay,
We had several. It's too big of a project for the smaller guys around.
okay.
So we reached out to CDL, and it's a pretty big process.
Okay, all right, so that's why we went farther away with someone who works kind of more
Right.
directly with Square D and so
Yes.
forth.
That
Okay,
is correct.
all right, all
And
right.
it is something that has, that is a safety issue.
It is.
That has to be corrected.
Yeah, that's an old building, and we just all have to realize that it's going to have, we've had major boiler issues, major things with it before because it's just old.
It is old.
I mean, it's a great building and great to look at when you drive by, but it's still old.
We just have to,
So will the electricity be off at any time? Well, I mean, it has to be, but
It
for how
will.
long?
I believe it said less than 48 hours.
Oh,
I mean, they'll have everything right there to go, and
yeah, okay.
it's a in and out deal, but it's equivalent to your panel at your house, it's your main disconnect.
the whole thing.
But it's for all of our brand-new HVAC, and we kind of,
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It is. And obviously, I mean, it's a $51,950 charge
Square
cost.
Square D's top brand, so, I mean, it's good equipment at Square D, so it's that simple. Any other questions on that? Okay, need a motion on that then?
I'll move to adopt that motion. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and second to approve the Schneider Electric to install the Square D main electrical switch. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. 10.13, action to approve a bid from Weatherproofing Technologies for some sealing and flashing at the high school.
So do you want to, so we've had a roof leak, and we thought it was the roof that was leaking, and it's not. It's the facade. Well, I've included some pictures in your report, but it is water that is getting in down in the facade and the flashing. And so runs down in there, which then leaks. I don't know, you want to tell them about when they came and,
They came and they took roof samples. They drilled into the roof to check the moisture. We couldn't find anything. And finally, they just hosed the wall for probably 20, 30 minutes. Eventually, you could just see the water running down the hallway.
so just put the garden hose. And so there were two different options that they gave us that we had, and we talked about this at our facilities meeting. We talked about all of these things at our facilities meeting last week. One was they could clean it and seal it, and that would be, what would be 27,000. Probably would work, maybe not. There wasn't any kind of a guarantee with that. And so the real way to solve the leak is just to replace that flashing. And so they're gonna have to take out brick, replace that, get it all cleaned up, reseal it, flash it properly, and then put it back together. And then that way, this isn't something that 5 years down the road, people are sitting around the table saying, why is the roof leaking?
And what kind of warranty goes with this?
What does it say in there?
Well, the real question I had was, we seem to, we seem to get work done, and then a decade later or whenever,
Same thing.
it was not done right, because this obviously wasn't done right from the get-go. And so I've been on the board long enough, I mean, if you don't stay on the board a long time, you don't know these things. But I've been here so long, it's like, why are we, because that's a new area of the high school.
20 years.
Yet we spend that money to have that built, and it's been probably leaking for a long time. So here we are.
I would agree.
So the contractor that did that was faulty from the get-go.
And it could be something that, like the tuck pointing, someone asked about what the tuck pointing was. That's something that has to be done every 20 to 25 years on a building. And I think what's happened is that there's been so much deferred maintenance. So even if it was installed properly in the beginning, there hasn't been any maintenance on that. And then we see the ramifications of that with leaking roofs and walls and those kinds of things.
It's like
But-
tile. You want to go in and reseal your tile in your
Yeah.
showers every,
So often.
so
Yeah.
it's like grout lines.
So I don't know that there's any warranty. I mean, I don't know. It's a
Well,
repair.
For flashing and tuck pointing, there should be a warranty, yes?
I don't know
Well,
what it is.
I don't know that there is, that's not,
I thought Matt with Trimco may have mentioned something to the effect of 15 years.
and let's,
I could be out of bounds there.
In other words, they saw the leaks, they saw the pictures,
Yeah,
they're going to go in and replace all that. There shouldn't be any leaks, just like Jeff said.
correct.
So,
In the hallway.
in the hallway, there
In
wouldn't
the
be any
hallway.
leak.
Right.
And so it would just be a matter of what we need to do then is be checking on that on a regular basis so that that's something that we're looking for so that we can prevent that before it happens again in 20 years. Because that new quote-unquote wing was built how many years ago?
15 or so.
15 or 20?
It's not been that long.
I mean, it was,
It was when everything was, lots of
which
things
was,
were.
I think that was
The bond issue.
2004.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so we're at 20 years, so.
It was right before I started working here, and it would have been my 17th year, so,
That would-
20.
Yeah.
20, so.
so you heard them mention something about a warranty,
I'd like to look back in through the paperwork.
but you think you did.
I
I
Yeah,
don't,
I don't see any, I
I
don't see any reference of it.
anything as a reference
To a
to
warning.
that
Yep.
here. Now, their product may be, I mean, and the reality is, we know these people, feel comfortable with it. I mean, if they do the work and we get a rain and it leaks, we know immediately who we're gonna call. And I think they would feel comfortable, they would make it right.
Because they're going to do the roofing at the high school in the next,
Well, they're gonna do the wet roof repair.
Yeah, I don't see any reference to any warning. So,
And I could reach out to Matt with,
But the reality,
Okay.
this is something that the insurance had brought up, because if we're gonna have claims and those kinds of things, so it needs to be that and the wet roof both.
well, if you find it, put it in the view this week then, please.
If we find out that there's any, we can put that in the view next week.
Okay, we either,
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
go ahead with
all right,
the weatherproofing.
all right.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the bid from Weatherproofing Technologies for the cleaning and sealing and flashing at the high school. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 1014, action to approve bid from same company for repair of the wet roof at the high school.
And so it seemed like the leak should come from the roof, and the roof is wet, but that is not how it all worked out. The roof is wet because of HVAC, right? Through the last however many years, it's just all kind of right there.
It was all in the same vicinity of where our rooftop unit is, so that was our assumption by it.
Right. And so that was.
We
in-
had a scan done of the roof at night, and you could tell exactly where the wet spots were.
All around the,
And it was all located right around the RDUs.
So is that,
Wet roof, sorry Jeff. The unit that was installed correctly on the one side, has
We
this
just
already
had
been
the one
corrected?
installed.
Has it already been corrected, the side that was installed wrong? The picture of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. That's good, fine.
But the wet roof has been 20 years in the making. Again, I mean,
so is that due to roofing or due to, is this moisture due to condensation off these rooftop units, or is it due to rain, or, do you know?
I lean more towards the rooftop units.
Okay,
They were gracious enough to just show us some of the things that was installed incorrectly.
okay, on the
There was
rooftop
a-
units?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was a drain right there too,
Okay,
that wasn't wrapped underneath,
okay,
which water could seep back
okay.
underneath.
Because that water should be, off those units, should be exiting the roof, not just setting on the roof. And so that's what I was trying to figure out.
Correct.
If we had,
so that'll be part of the correction?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
all right. Any other questions on that?
so that, we felt like the repair option there was reasonable and would get that replaced. I mean, we're going to have, look at, I mean, just what Mr. Wood had said earlier, we're going to have to keep those roofs on a schedule, but the high
When
school's
would
not.
they start all this?
They told him that they thought it would take 7 days to do it, but he'll just have to call him in the morning. I
See
mean,
what
once
their
it's,
schedule.
once
Okay.
it's been approved, just get on their schedule.
Okay, need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the bid from Weatherproofing Technologies for repairs to the wet roof at the high school. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you for your assistance tonight.
Thank you.
And Mr. LaForge will, I'll have him, I've got his number, and so we'll get you in
Yeah.
contact with him one way or the other. Yep.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
Worked out perfect.
Okay, 10.15, action on the Spark Wheel MOU.
Okay, so this is Spark Wheel is what used to be called Communities in Schools, so you've probably heard it called that, not really Spark Wheel, I don't know why, anyway, but Spark Wheel is what it is now. So we have a Spark Wheel liaison person at the middle school, Susan Hill at the high school, Dara Baumiller, they've both done really good jobs. It's a great family engagement program and attendance incentive. This is something that at-risk money can be used for. It's on the approved list. So there was some grant money that was available, because as a reminder, the district only pays $12,500 a year per, what do they call them? Representatives,
Director.
per person, yeah.
Right.
So there was additional grant money available at the end of the year. There were other places that said, no, they didn't want people. And it came available, so I visited with her, and she said if that was something that we wanted to do, I gave her some information about Lincoln, at our elementary. Originally, I had said all the elementaries, well, based on the number of students we have and their program, I can't do just one person for 630 kids. So
Right.
looking at attendance data, that kind of stuff, Lincoln was the place where we really needed another person. And so we applied and we were approved, as long as the board
This has
approves.
been a great program.
That
at
MOU.
middle school and high school. And I think when we approved that last time, I don't know, Lou or somebody said, why don't we have this in the elementary? So-
Yeah, exactly.
And so
So
there
who would
was-
that person be? Do we know
Well, and
yet?
so they would open it up. I know there have been people in the community that have expressed an interest in that, because you're right, it's the person, not the program. The person makes the program. And so-
Exactly.
But I do think there's some good leads, and so once it's been approved, they will get it out and advertised, and we'll put it on our social media and encourage people to, hi.
You looking for another job, Lou?
Oh, no.
Maybe you-
No, I've got enough.
All right, you got enough on your plate? All right, all right. Okay, need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve that Sparkville MOU. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ooh, that's going to be so exciting.
Motion carries, so we're at 7:20. We're going to have a couple somewhat brief, anticipated brief executive sessions. Do we need a bathroom break before we enter those, or are we good?
It looks like a yes over there.
Okay,
I'm actually fine.
you're fine? Everybody else fine? All right, well, I haven't drank enough to need a bathroom break, so I'm fine too. So we'll start with 10.16, executive session to discuss personnel matters for non-elected personnel. We'll start with 7 minutes for that. So I need a motion on that, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception or coma at 7:21 for 7 minutes, and we'll return back to open session at 7:28. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, back here at 7:28. Okay, we're back in executives, or back in open session, excuse me, and we're moving on to item 10.17, executive session to discuss employer-employee negotiations. And we need about 7 minutes for that topic as well, so entertain a motion on that topic. 7 minutes.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that we enter executive session to discuss the exception for employer-employee negotiations under coma at 7:30 for 7 minutes, and that the board return to open meeting at 7:37. We will, of course, have the superintendent, assistant superintendent with us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 7 minutes, 7. Number 3, since you announced it. Okay, we're back in open session here, and we're moving on to 10.18, action on personnel.
All right, we had one resignation from employment, Brianna Nesh, Garfield Title I aide, effective June the 24th, 2024. I recommend that you approve that resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve that resignation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion, or then we're moving to 10.19, action on supplementals.
Okay, the supplemental assignments are listed on page 51 through 54 of your board packet. These are supplemental assignments for the 24-25 school year. I recommend that you approve them as presented.
So moved.
I second it.
Moved and seconded to approve all those supplemental assignments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries as well. So we are adjourned since I see no more action items.
Thank you.
Where's Lady?